Well, hello everyone, and good afternoon. I hope you're having a great day, and I just want to thank every single one of you for joining us today. And so I will be helping out today. My name is Darinka Oviedo, and you can call me Daddy if you want. And it's easier to remember. Now, let me introduce our special guest for today. Is please welcome Dr. Nicolas Valenzuela, and I just want to highly encourage you to turn on your video cameras if you want. If not, that's okay. But yeah, let me introduce Dr. Nicolas Valenzuela. Thank you for being here with us today. And yeah, now let me, it's Dr. Nicolas Valenzuela. He was raised by a single Mexican mother who only went to the 8th grade in the west side of Barrio of San Antonio, where the schools underperformed and students were careful not to be stabbed or shot. Shy and quiet, Nick dreamed of earning a college degree because he hoped it would provide him with options to succeed in life, but he never imagined the opportunities that would come to him as a result of pursuing his dreams and goals. After attending San Antonio Community College, he transferred to the University of Texas at Austin, where he earned a bachelor's and a master's degree and conducted research about Spanish and English language media consumed by Latinos in the southwestern United States. He continued his studies at Stanford University, where he earned a second master's, a PhD, and was awarded a prestigious Fulbright Fellowship to research how Televisa in Mexico City started and grew the U.S. Spanish language television network known today as Univision. Dr. Valenzuela's hope of having options to succeed in life went beyond what he imagined. And when after attending Stanford University, he worked advising C-level executives in strategic planning and marketing at the Fortune 100 Silicon Valley, giant Microsoft, Intel Corporation, Sun Microsystems, Seagate Technologies, Hewlett Packard, and others. A constant theme throughout his career has been to offer encouragement and advice to others, especially Latinos. In addition to his motivational talks, Dr. Valenzuela offers coaching and workshops about college admissions, career development and success, entrepreneurship, development and success, leadership, communications in the workplace. Today, he is a highly sought-after motivational keynote speaker who shares his insight and wisdom learned from his unique experiences at top universities and corporations on his journey from the barrio to the boardroom. Now, please welcome Dr. Valenzuela, and who will be here with us today. And I hope you're having a great day. And I just wanted to remind you that we have a sign-in sheet that will be in the chat.
Thank you very much, Dari or Darinka. I'm not sure if I got your nickname correct. And to all of you, my gente.
Daddy, that's fine.
To all of you, hello. I'm so glad you're here. My gente, it makes me so happy to see names there like Romero, Acevedo, Valdez, Cassandra, Geraldine, Angie, just all, Danielle. It makes me really, really happy because I was you. I was where you are one day. And I wish that I would have had somebody to give me a little bit of advice, to give me some direction, and my life would have been even more successful. So today I just want to thank you for being here, for making the time to be here. Hablo español también, pero lo voy a decir todo en inglés. Quiero que ustedes tengan preguntas. Quiero que tomen notas. I want you to take notes. I want you to have questions as I'm speaking. I'm going to cover several different topics, but the topic of our conversation today is how do you determine what to believe in the media? And that is what we're going to talk about. However, I want to tell you a little story first before we get going. And that's about me. When I was a kid, I lived in a house like Dari just said, raised by a single mom and an older brother that was 10 years older than me. But basically, I was a latchkey kid. And I don't know if you know what that means, but they would give me the key. My mother would give me 50 cents or $1 or something and said, this is for lunch and this is for dinner. And I'd come home and I'd spend a lot of time by myself. I was highly influenced by teachers as well as by television, and then less so by the neighbors and my family. Everybody in my community was Mexicano. It wasn't until I got to high school that I saw a whole school full of blonde heads and blue eyes. And I realized, boy, the world is not made up of just Latinos. There's a lot of other people in the world as well. So I had to deal with that. Now, let me tell you a little bit more about what happened. When I'd come home from school, I'd watch television. We had a great big television, a big one that stood on rollers, and it had doors. And I used to like to hang on to the doors and watch the television looking down. One day, I leaned back so far, the TV fell on me. I was screaming and everything. My neighbors came over, they lifted the TV off of me, and I survived. But that's basically to say I watched a lot of television. And what I saw on television, I did not match what I saw outside my door of my house. On television, there were middle class families. They all lived nice. Everybody was pretty. And, you know, they were all white. Of course, I did watch what the precursor to Univision. Back then, it was called Spanish International Network. And yeah, I saw a lot of Latinos, but then even then, the novelas or the newscasters, they didn't look, you know, más prietito como yo. They looked more European a lot of times, or they looked higher income, higher class. And that always made me feel like, okay, maybe I'm just not quite, you know, as good as they are. You know, I haven't quite made it. You know, I don't look like they do. But I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be like the people I saw on television. And then when I stopped looking at the television, I'd open the door and step outside. And what did I see? I saw a lot of homes like mine. Some of them needed repair. Some of them needed painting. I'd look on the streets, you know, on television, all the streets, all the homes had sidewalks. All the schools, all the streets had curbs, and it was all really nice and manicured. I'd look in my front yard y teníamos yarditas que separaban el zacate de nuestra propiedad y la calle. So there were just little stones, little gravel that were in the gutter that separated our yard from the street. And even the street had lots of potholes and bumps and everything. And that was my environment. And I couldn't tell you exactly. I couldn't explain it to somebody, but I felt it. I felt it in my emotions. Like, what is this that I'm looking at? And what is that I'm looking on television? And how come there's such a difference? Essentially, the message that I got is, I haven't made it. We haven't made it. This is not my you know, this is not what the rest of the world or the rest of America is like. And I wanted that. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to have the opportunities and the advantages that other people had that I saw. So that's kind of where I began. Let me tell you a little bit about my school. When I was in the 7th grade, I had a teacher pull me out in the middle of the hallway in front of all the students, talking to another teacher, and she said, "Tell Nick to stop talking about wanting to go to college. He's not college material." She was the English teacher. She was giving me a D- in English. So I'm going to leave it there for right now, because I'm going to come back to what I learned from that later at the end of the discussion. I'm going to give it the end of the presentation. But I had a choice at that moment. What do I do? I mean, you know, Mrs. Restman, she was saying, "Tell Nick to stop talking about going to college. He's not college material. He's not smart. He's dumb." That's what I heard. That's what I heard. He's dumb. He's stupid. He can't learn. She was giving me a D- in English. That's what I heard. And I had a choice. What do I do? We all have choices when we're insulted like that. You know, we can scream and yell, maybe kick her in the leg or something, make a scene or something. What I decided to do was I was going to prove her wrong. I knew I was smart. I knew I could learn. I knew that what I wanted to be successful. I wanted to succeed in life. I wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted to not be at the bottom, but I wanted to be like everybody else. I thought of myself, even at that moment, at that time, I said, I'm no better, but I'm certainly no worse than anybody else. And I'm going to prove her wrong. That's what I thought. I'm going to prove her wrong. I was determined to do that. And what happened? I got much, much more success than I ever imagined. My first year at school, actually my senior year in high school, all the students around me, I went to an all gringo high school, mostly all gringo, very, very successful school. Most of the students went to college after that. And in April of my senior year, everybody's talking about, oh, I got into Stanford, I got into Harvard, I got into UT Austin, I got into Texas A&M, I got into SMU, a lot of other schools all over the country, all over the place, different places. And I looked around and I said, what happened? No one ever told me to apply to anything. You know, when did I miss that? So the first year I ended up going to community college. I flunked everything. And that's important for you to know because we are all going to experience failure. I flunked everything because I was depressed. I'd broken up with my girlfriend. I didn't go to the big college. And at the end of the year was the first time a counselor came to talk to me. And the counselor called me into his office and said, well, you're being expelled. You are really not college material. That was the same thing Mrs. Rushman said. You know, you're not smart. You know, you can't make it in college. You know, yeah, maybe he wasn't quite that mean or that blunt, but that was the message. You know, you're getting expelled. And the reason for it is he said, you got a D- average. You know, you passed PE maybe, something like that. And I fought back at that instant. And you're going to have these moments in your life as well. At that instant, I had a choice: accept the label that other people were putting on me, accept what this person was telling me, that I was not smart, that I did not belong in college, or prove them wrong. And once again, I was determined. I was going to prove them wrong. I was going to prove that guy wrong. So I read the catalog. I said, look, it says here I can come here summer. If I get a C average, I can come another semester. If I get 2 semesters with C averages, I can then continue coming for a 3rd semester and be off probation. And so that's what I did. But the next 2 years, I worked really hard. Actually, I often tell people those first 2 years of community college were the hardest years of my academics because I was determined to get straight A's because I needed to get my grade point average up to be a C average so I could transfer to another school. Eventually, I transferred to UT Austin. And so I'll come back to that later. But a mentor took me under his wing and essentially came to a class and said, we're going to be doing a program named Carrasco Lendas. It's like a Spanish language Sesame Street. And he talked a lot about it. I ran right up there and said, Dr. Williams, Fred Williams was his name. I always like to mention his name because he changed my life, and you'll see why. I said, Dr. Williams, I speak Spanish. I consume Spanish language television. I want to be involved. Okay, he sent somebody to hire me, and I worked as a low level gopher, just doing whatever they wanted me to do. And a couple of years later, when I finished my bachelor's degree, he said, I want you to look into this research project. I gave me a ticket to go to Arizona, to Tucson. I went, came back, said, great project. Here's my report. I think you ought to do it. I'm going to go find my life. He said, come back here. You're going to be the director. Oh, okay. And then began my tutoring, my learning, my mentoring, although I didn't know he was mentoring me. And what he asked was, what is the first thing you're going to do? And how long is that going to take you? Oh, okay. Well, I got to organize, the management of the project that you just said that I'm going to have. Okay. What's the next thing you're going to do? And how long is that going to take you? Oh, I'm going to hire some people. And what's the next thing you're going to do? Actually, before the hiring, I'm going to then define the research study and then hire some people and et cetera, and et cetera, et cetera. And it went on. And every time it was, what's the next thing you're going to do? And how long is that going to take you? I didn't give up. And I didn't cower away from the challenge. I didn't know the answers, but it made sense to me. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this next and this next. And he kept supporting me. He saw that I didn't give up, so he didn't give up on me. And that's really important. You cannot give up. You have to keep pushing. You have to keep going forward. Now, I'm going to ask you towards the end of this presentation about what your life goals are. And you're probably going to say, I don't know. I really don't know what I want to do. Well, we're all that way. I do a lot of employment coaching and career coaching for high-level executives. And some of them get fired after they've been with a company 15, 20 years, and they're devastated. They're saying, I don't know what I'm going to do. That whole company, that job, that was my life. That was my identity. Without that, I just know what I'm going to do. I don't even have a resume done. And so it's not just you that is in question about what you're going to do. It is all of us. And we're going to come back to that a little bit at the end. I'd like you to ask me some questions, because one of the most important things that you can do to be successful, as to be courageous and take a leap. Now, take a measured leap. Don't just jump off the cliff, but look at where you're going, but don't shy away. Take a leap, have faith in yourself, be courageous, act with confidence, and succeed as you're proceeding into the unknown. Yes, you don't know what your future is going to hold, but if you work hard, if you have courage, if you make decisions, and if you set up goals, even if they change, which they will change, you will continue to grow. As you learn more information, it's going to change. It's going to change. Your information is going to change. You're going to have more information. You're going to be able to then revise your goals. But more importantly, your opportunities are going to change. My mother called me one day when I was at Stanford. My mom only went to the 8th grade. And she worked as sewing for much of her life, making dresses and things. She worked at a department store. But then the second part of her career, she worked at the local Air Force Base in San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base, serving food to the airmen that were going through line. And one day she's talking to her comadre, yeah, sí, yo tengo un hijo que está en California, va a una escuela que se llama Stanford, y blah, 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 hablaron. And this lieutenant colonel tapped her on the shoulder and said, what do you mean you have a son going to Stanford University? You're a server here on the line. What do you mean? And she called me up that night and said, mijo, what exactly do you do? ¿Qué haces allí? Porque, this lieutenant colonel, this officer, he did not believe me that you were going to Stanford. This is what's going to happen to you if you pursue an education and you grow. I really did not know what to tell her because she was in one world that I had grown up in. And I had learned, and I had changed, and I had learned so many other things, had so many opportunities that I found myself at a loss for how to explain to her that I'm working on a dissertation about something that I love. And that love was Spanish language television. I was doing a history of how Spanish language television succeeded where many other networks in the United States had not succeeded. But I didn't know what to tell her. So I tried to explain to her, but the realization, what's important of this is that statement made me realize that I had grown a great deal more than what I was when I lived in San Antonio, and that I had many, many more opportunities that my mother, who only went to the 8th grade, could not even imagine. She couldn't imagine the opportunities I had for myself, and I'll tell you about those after a while. In any case, I talked to her, and now one thing that's important, I don't want you to get the idea that I left my community and didn't care about it or didn't go back. No, Latinos, my community, the places where there are people that are of low income, especialmente los Latinos que hablan español, those are the people I identify with. Those are the people that my entire life, when I went to community college, when I went to the 4-year college at UT Austin, when I went to Stanford, when I worked at Microsoft, at Sun Microsystems, at Seagate, at Maxtor, and consulted at every company, a lot of many other companies, Hewlett Packard and others. At every step of the way, I was looking for the Latinos. Hey, let me talk to you. Let me show you how to get from where you are to the next step. Let me give you some advice. Let me help you do that. And I did that naturally because I was trying to help the person like me that was back there that didn't know what to do. And that's why I'm here today, because I'm trying to help you. So at the end or after this, you got questions, feel free to write to me, feel free to call me. I'll give you whatever help I can. So let's get back to the media. Let's get back to Spanish language media. My job at that time, this was the very first study that had been done in the United States about media consumed by Latinos, media consumed by people that speak Spanish and English. And we had a lot of questions, like, boy, do they only watch Spanish language TV and radio and newspapers? And what do they like to watch? Where do they get their news? And yes, a lot of the news was coming from Mexico and the Spanish language reporters we had locally. So how do the people consume this news and what do they do with it? And how is this different from the English language media news? There are a lot of questions we had like that. What I learned in summary was we're no different from the English speakers. Yeah, the media might be different. I mean, the medium, the language. If I was looking at Spanish International Network, which became Univision, the channel might be different, but the news that we're getting was largely the same. It was largely the same. It was news about, well, if it was local, It's all the bad stuff, who got robbed, who got killed, what a car accident there was, what damage was done in the community. And as I looked at that, I realized why. Why are people always emphasizing the negative, the bad things? Well, the reason was because they determined this is what got the eyeballs. This is what got people to look at their station. They have to make it sensational. They have to make it something that's going to attract people. So it didn't matter if it was English or Spanish. But, I looked at the English programs. There were a lot of, sitcoms and the day movies, what do you call them? The novelas, the novelas, but in English. And I looked at the Spanish language television. What did they watch? A lot of novelas and a lot of sports as well. So, but who were the people in these things? They were not people that looked like me. And if they were the gardener, or if they looked like my girlfriend or my cousins or somebody, they were the maids. They were not the people that owned the property, the people that were the main decision makers, the people that were on top. It was the same in Spanish or in English, on Spanish International Network or on ABC, CBS, or NBC. The programming was largely the same. And why? Why was that the case? Well, you didn't have many sources of media like you do today. You only had the three networks. There'd been other networks, one called DuPont that had failed. There were a couple of others. They hadn't been able to make it, but there was Spanish International Network. And so we would watch those. But why were they the same? It's because the mentality of the people that were there was the same. It was not the mentality of me or the people that I knew in my community. It was the mentality of the people that were more highly educated. They were probably much higher income than I was. Not probably, they were. And in the case of the English language media, they was largely dominated by white men. They made the decisions. Back in the 1930s and 40s and into the 1950s, there was a man that was more powerful in the media than anyone else, a guy named Lowell Thomas. And he came out of Colorado. He had a really good voice, an orator. His father groomed him to be an orator, but he was also an entrepreneur. And so one of the first things he did is he went around the world and he started then giving reports about what he saw. And these became then news reports. Then a little later, he got on film. So he would film these travel logs and give reports. And they would be shown between the movies back then. So they would show like a doubleheader movie at the movie theater, and you would see this newsreel come across the screen before you saw the film. And it would be Lowell Thomas talking about Egypt, talking about France, talking about Asia, talking about this or that. World War II came, and he said, "I got to be where the news is. I want to go to the war front." He went to the war front and then reported back. Here's what's going on in the war front stuff. But he established one thing that followed for many years, which was he realized that he had one point of view and he did not want to make his reporting biased. He wanted to make it neutral. So he tried very, very hard to make it neutral. And that philosophy then translated to other newscasters later, like Walter Cronkite and Dan Rather and Jennings and many others that came after them, mostly men, white men. And so when the three networks started developing their big hold on the media, it was these white guys, and they said, yeah, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to try and be neutral. By the time I was studying the media, it was more like, okay, the media is all determined by what these white guys think is important. This was in the era of the civil rights movements, of the Chicano movement, of social unrest, of people saying, we deserve to have the same opportunities that everybody else does. And we were arguing, we're pressing for that. We wanted to have the same opportunities. And I'm looking at the media and I'm saying, why do our stories not get on, except for when there's a fire, when there's a riot, when there's something negative going on? And that was the environment in which I entered the field of communications research, studying Spanish language media or media consumed by Latinos, as well as the development of Spanish language television in the United States. We were not being represented. Our stories were not being told. Okay, let's fast forward a little bit more. Let's fast forward. So what has happened? Okay, there was a long period of time there where people, where we're arguing to get into the media. And finally, today, you see many, many more Latinos and Blacks and Asians, a lot of people of color that are on the media. But what happened in between here and there? You know, we had to get educated, we had to get a chance, we had to fight, we had to start telling our stories. But the media changed in that neutrality that those newscasters felt that they were promoting, we were able to see it's not neutral, it's not unbiased, regardless of their good intentions of wanting to be objective and wanting to be fair and wanting to say, tell the truth, tell the news. It wasn't, because they couldn't help themselves. It came through their eyes. It came through their reality, their mentality. That was the way they saw the world. When they saw Wyatts and Watts, or they saw Cesar Chavez marching, it was from the outside looking in. It was not from the inside looking out, telling their stories. So it was a biased point of view, and they began to realize that that was the truth. Okay, today many of us are in the media. There's still a long way to go, but there's a lot more in the media. However, another thing has changed, and it started in the late 80s. I'd like to take a little bit of credit for the change in the media that you see today. And the reason for that is because in early 1985, in March to be specific, I turned in my dissertation. My dissertation was this huge study about Spanish International Network. And what I said in that study was, I was asking the question, why did Spanish International Network succeed and become profitable and stay since the early 1950s until now, 30 years later, 35 years later, in the 80s? Why did it succeed when so many other English language networks that had lots of money behind them, they had billionaires behind them as well, why did they fail and Spanish International Network succeed? So I looked at a lot of different things. Okay, one thing, they used different technology. They had programming that was very appealing, that was cheap, and they had a built-in audience that wanted to see this programming because it was all in Spanish. So, you know, there was no place else to look if you wanted something in Spanish. And even then, there were many, many, many Latinos throughout all the United States, but concentrated in the southwestern states. And of course, after 1960 in Florida, when a lot of the Cubans came over, and in New York, a lot of Puerto Ricans. And today we're diverse. We're in every state in the union. There are Spanish-speaking communities in every state, probably in every major community all over the United States. So what was different? Well, what was different is that these television stations that Spanish International Network had put together into a network were owned by people that were sent from Mexico City, from Televisa, to the United States to own these stations. At that time, there was a law from the Federal Communications Commission that said that broadcast stations, radio and television, could not have more than 20% ownership by foreign people, foreign organizations or individuals. So there was a 20% limit. So what happened with the case of Spanish International Network is that they had people that had American citizenship that said, you're going to work for me, going to send you to San Antonio, Los Angeles, Albuquerque, Tucson, to Miami, to New York, to Chicago, and you're going to own those stations, and you're going to do what we tell you to do. Not only that, we're going to provide all this programming. Now, why did Televisa want to do this? They had two reasons. One is they had been in the media since the 1930s, since the early days of film, and they had established Televisa early on. It was established by, I think it was 3 past presidents of Mexico and René Escarga, an entrepreneur, rich guy, who became even richer. And they dominated. It was like all 3 networks dominated by under one roof. And they had all this programming, years and years of programming sitting on the shelves. And they looked around and they said, there's all these Mexicanos, all these Spanish-speaking people in the United States. And not only that, and this is the analysis that I did in my dissertation, the gross national product, the wealth, if you will, the spending power of Latinos in the United States. At that time, this would have been, I was studying from the period from the 60s to the 80s. At that time, Latinos in the United States made up as much wealth, had as much wealth as I think it was the second or third, maybe the first, I forget right now, largest Spanish-speaking economy in the world, bigger than Mexico, bigger than Argentina, bigger than Spain, or at least equivalent to them. There was money to be made by selling things to the Spanish-speaking population in the United States. That's why Televisa wanted to then start a network of outlets in the United States. But they had another trick, and that was that they would then say, okay, we're going to rent you this programming and you need to pay us. The stations weren't making any money. So what happened? They got into debt. But no matter what money they made, that was still going to be a profit for Televisa. They got some of that money anyway for Televisa, yes. But eventually, by the time that I came along looking at what they were doing, these stations owed so much money to them that if they ever became solvent and profitable, they were going to have all this back stuff they're going to have to pay to Spanish International Network. But I turned in my dissertation in March of 1985, and the Federal Communications Commission looked at what I wrote about the control of this network of TV stations all over the United States, and they came down on Spanish International Network, which was headquartered in New York, and they said, you can't do this. This is not right. You're going to have to disown your stations. So the people that were really running the show in Mexico City said, wait a minute, this is a problem. What are we going to do? They solved the problem. They said, well, we don't have to own the stations. And what we can do is become a CBS, an NBC, an ABC. We can become a network. We'll establish ourselves in New York. By the way, we're going to change our name, which I also pointed to in my dissertation, because the Fulbright fellowship that I got was to go live in Mexico City for a year and interview people at Televisa. And let me tell you, when you're messing with people that have a lot of power and that the rules are different than they are, when they're different in one side of the border than they are the other side of the border. I often worried about whether I was going to be crossing the street and maybe a car was going to hit me or something was going to happen. So I was very careful. In any case, what the people at Televisa did, Escarga said, we'll just become a network and we'll sell the stations. But we've got all this programming, and if you stations want to survive in these markets, you're going to rent this programming from us. We're going to import it. We're not going to own stations. We're going to rent it from you. Yeah, they lost a little bit of the control, but they were able to increase the prices. And they had all the demographics about how many Latinos there were and how it was growing exponentially. And I was predicting, and they were predicting even back then, the size of the Latino population that we are today. And it's going to continue growing. It's going to continue growing. So we're going to have more and more economic power. Economic power, that means that we have influence. And it's only a matter of time before we Latinos as a group, I know we're not all the same. I know there where you are in Laredo, it's Mexicanos, but the English language media, they try to group us all as one homogeneous group, a stereotype. Latinos, they speak Spanish. They must all think the same. They must all believe the same things. No, I pointed out, and sometimes you hear in the media, people that know what they're talking about pointing out, and I heard it in the last elections. Oh, no, let me inform you, public. The Spanish-speaking people in Florida are not the same as the ones in Texas or in Arizona or California or the ones in New York. And there are Puerto Ricans, there are Cubans, there are Mexicanos, there are Central Americans. In the last 2 or 3 decades, got a slew of Salvadoreños, Nicaraguenses, and Guatemaltecos that are coming to the United States. And here in California, I'd look around to the communities that used to be all Mexicano, and I'd run into people and I'd talk to them and ask them, where are you from? Guatemala, Nicaragua, from El Salvador, and other countries like that. We're all different. We all have different opinions. The other thing that I get amazed by is I still stay in contact with some of the friends that I had in junior high school. That's where we were all Mexicanos. We still have a very strong bond. And I still get together with them, sometimes in person, going to San Antonio, sometimes over Zoom when they get together. But we still have a very strong bond of, Robert Fernandez, Hernandez, Cavazos, Vallejo, all the Latino friends, and women as well. So I'm still very, very close to our group of maybe around 15, 20 people. But I always assumed that they thought like I did, that they were of one political persuasion. And I was shocked. I mean, really, really shocked when I started finding out some of these guys don't believe the same thing I do. Some of these guys are from the other party, from the other side. Okay, I didn't disown them. We're still friends. We still talk, and I respect them. But I kept wondering why. Why does this happen? You know, what did they hear? What do they believe that leads them to that conclusion and me to a different conclusion? Okay, so I asked myself those questions, and it's part of the experience that we have in the world, what we do. So I want to switch here to something that you can do and to understand where you are, where others are, and how to determine what you believe in the media. First of all, I want to ask, are you a consumer? Are you taking the easy route and having somebody else tell you this is what you should believe? They may not even say it that way. They're basically just like it was with what I described about the English language media. They put out the news. They thought they were being unbiased. For me, that didn't have the same frame of mind that they were coming from, I kept thinking that's the way the world's supposed to be. I look outside my door. That's not what my world is. And it you know, something's wrong there. Something's wrong there. Okay. So then you need to ask yourself, where are these people coming from? Why are they putting out this information? You know, who are they? Who are they? You need to start doing some fact checking. You need to find out who are they? What do they represent? And today you have the tools to do that. When I was your age, sitting in a chair just like you, I had to go to the library. I had to, you know, just figure it out. It was a lot slower to get the information. So you had to, but you didn't have the tools that you have today. Today you have the internet. You can find out, you can ask questions, and always ask questions, both positive and negative. You'll get a much more balanced view. You need to be critical of what you hear. You need to investigate who they are, what point of view they have, why are they speaking. So let me tell you something. My first degree was in advertising, and I was so shocked. I was just floored by how much money went, even then, into a 30-second ad that I would see on television or hear on the radio, or even print media, ad. How much thinking went into it. They would do all this testing. They would find out all the psychology. They would do focus groups to find out who it appeals to and who it doesn't appeal to. Well, at the time that ad came out on television or radio, they knew where they were putting it, because, you know, my favorite program was such and such. And if they wanted to appeal to me, they were going to advertise on that channel at that time frame for my age group and for, you know, my orientation to the life. And they were going to then give me messages that I agreed with, or I, you know, felt were, you know, yeah, that's what I want, or that's what I'm all about. They would do that. And so when I would hear the ads, oh yeah, that's me. That's what I want. So yeah, I want to buy that soap. I want to buy that perfume. I want to, not perfume, but the underarm deodorant, or I want to buy, you know, that car because it's going to get me the girlfriend that I want, or that whatever it might be. They knew more about me than I knew about myself. So my point of that is that it's not an accident what you see and hear on television or radio or print media. It has been well thought out. They put a lot of money into it. And if you're hearing it because it's your favorite station, they're doing it because they want you to do something. They're trying to influence you. So your question, your job, your responsibility is to exercise critical thinking. Ask yourself, why are they sending this message to me? What are they trying to get me to do? And you don't necessarily have to slough it off at the very beginning and say, no, you know, I'm not going to do what they want me to do. There may be some benefits to some of the things there, but you need to ask the questions, and you need to base it on your own reality. You know, what do you know is real in Laredo? When you go to school, when you go downtown, when you go to your favorite taqueria, or wherever you go, when you hang out with your friends, what is your reality? What is real? Now, you can't just look and say, that's real, this isn't real. The way to really understand is you need to ask a lot of questions. If there's one thing that is most important of the value that I got from all the education I had, it is that I can share with you today, that you can make use of. It is to always question, always ask questions, always ask questions. And you don't have to do it in a mean way, and you don't have to ask it in a way that I don't believe you. But what you're doing is you're asking questions, whether it's of your friends, your neighbors, your teachers, or of what you're seeing in the media, or whatever it may be, wherever you go, the jobs you have, ask questions. Why? What are you telling me? Why is that important? Explain something behind it about what is it all about? You know, why is that important for me to learn this? Or what is the importance? What is the meaning of the information that you're giving me right now, or that, or whatever? Ask, and then maybe even whatever they tell you, practice what's called active listening. A person gives you an answer, and you repeat back to them, you reflect back to them. So what you're telling me is the reason that's important is for X, Y, and Z. And what they're going to say is that, yeah, for X and Y, but not really Z. Let me correct you. Maybe I didn't say it quite right. Let me say it a different way. So there's going to be an exchange. You're going to better understand what they're trying to tell you. They're going to appreciate you because they know that you're listening. They know that you care, and you're engaging them in communications. That's going to be really, really valuable. Let me switch to another thing that's going to be really important for you by doing this. I assume that you're here because you want to be successful. Is that right? You could be doing something else. Why are you here? Okay, do you have a question? Anybody? Okay, I thought I saw somebody come up. Yes, Dari, Veronica has a question.
Okay, do you have a question, Victoria, Veronica?
She's muted.
Oh, okay.
So about the question about the English channels. So it's a question about those English channels.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know how like some people, why do English people say put stereotype, in the media, I'm gonna say a question about white people on English TVs, stereotyping any other country. I'm like, is that true? Even if it's I'm gonna put Mexico, how Mexico is portrayed in the media. Why should Mexico be portrayed like that when it's actually, yes, even though, yes, there's some events but still, why is Mexico portrayed just the dirt, really dirty, dirt, made of dirt, when it's actually full of life cities and animals, you know? Why is it kind of it's hard to ask.
I think I know what you're asking. I think I know where it is. Why are the media, and you're asking specifically about English language media, why
Yes.
are they portraying this in the way they are, which you're telling me, Victoria, that these are negative images. This is not the positive self-image that you have of your community and yourself. Why are they doing this? Well, there were two things that I said a little while ago that I alluded to. And one is they don't know any better. They're not looking at you from your experience. They're looking at you and at Mexico and at Mexican communities from their own experience, from the outside. And so that's one reason why that happens. The other reason is because they want to portray what they see in a way that is going to make sense to them, because they feel it's going to make sense to those people that they feel are going to be viewing what they say, which are going to be other people like themselves. That's the same thing I said a little while ago. The media is or was the way it was, and it still is today, or at least back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and into the 80s, dominated by white Anglo men. And that was the point of view. It wasn't just about Latinos. And it was about women as well. Women fought hard to get into the media. And they had to endure a lot of the same prejudices that the rest of us of people of color have endured, but even more so, the prejudice of, well, you're not as strong and as bright, and you belong in the kitchen, and they're still trying to fight that, or sexist comments, which is, that battle's been going on for years and years and years. It's only been in the last maybe 5-6 years that's come to the forefront, but women have been fighting that for a long time. In addition to, if you're a woman of color, you also had the color barrier. You had a different culture. You were different. Now, why does this happen? Let me go on, Victoria. Why does this happen?
Yeah.
We as human beings want to feel secure that we belong to a group. There's something that is called groupthink. Why? Let me start this way. How many of you have a favorite sports team? Got a sports team? You go to it. The Dallas Cowboys. Let me just pick that. Maybe that's not your favorite. Maybe it's
It's my team.
What?
It's my team. It's my favorite team.
All right, we'll go with Dallas Cowboys. That's right. Good. Dallas Cowboys, man, they're my team. So you get together in front of the TV, family comes together, neighbors come together, you cheer, hey, scored, man, you're getting it, doing right, doing. Maybe if you get to go to a game at some point, you do a tailgate and people are all there. They're strangers that you don't even know, but hey, go Cowboys, yay, go, everything, you cheering everything, and you're all for it. What that is called is a certain culture. It cuts across socioeconomic, in that instance, it cuts across socioeconomic lines, meaning the amount of income that people bring to it. You could be poor or rich or middle class, or maybe the where you live or what kind of education you have. If that's your team, boy, that other guy over there, doesn't matter if he's white, black, or whatever, that's my buddy, because man, he's with the Dallas Cowboys. That's great. So they're my buddy. And so you go and you cheer with other people that you don't even know, because it is a culture. So we belong to a lot of different cultures. We can belong to our own culture of our community, and there's a certain community or culture, maybe several cultures in South Texas. So there can be the culture like what I grew up in, that was all Mexicanos. Like I said earlier, I didn't know anyone that was not Mexicano. There was an occasional family, and I thought, wow, they're different. That's curious. Oh, well, I'm not going to think about them because, I deal with everybody else. It wasn't, I said, until I went to high school that I realized, oh my God, I went to this gringo high school, everybody's blonde and blue eyed, and I'm the one that's the one that is different. And then as I went to college, also things changed. But at college, I did have an advantage. There were a lot of Latinos that went to school, to community college and to UT Austin. And I found my place, and I was able to continue secure. So Victoria, excuse me, I want to keep calling you Veronica. Victoria, to answer your question, we all have a need to want to belong. It's security. It's security because, we feel safe. As we grow up, especially when you're becoming teenagers, you want to be accepted. You want to be loved. You want to know that you're, that you're good and that people like you and everything. As you get older, you begin to realize that you have to be your own person. And one of the things about getting older and when you become your own person, when you make some of these life decisions, is give yourself a break, because when you're a teenager, you don't have all the facility to make the right kind of executive management, life management decisions. Your frontal lobe of your brain, where you make those kind of decisions, does not stop developing until you're roughly in your middle 20s, somewhere between 21 and 25. And that's when people start to mature a little bit more. So in my coaching, I get a lot of people that are teenagers that want to know what they can do to go to college. And I'm asking a lot of questions about the essays they need to write that show that they know who they are, so they can reveal that to the admissions officers, so they can say, that's the kind of person we want. And then they get into college and they're learning a lot, and they're still trying to figure out who they are and show discipline by going to class and time management to study, etc. And then they get into their first jobs or two, and I get another crowd of people that have been out working for maybe 3, 4, 5 years. So they're now in their late 20s, and they're coming back with a different realization. They're asking more like, now I realize some of the things that need to happen for me to be successful. Help me get back into school. Help me learn. Now I realize how important school was. Now I realize some of the things I need to learn. So they're coming to ask for help. Give yourself a break. But that is only in terms of give yourself a break, that you're going to be able to make better and better decisions in the future. Do not let go of trying to set goals for yourself, of finding what's inside yourself that you're passionate about, that you want to do, and you're going to have setbacks. If you don't have setbacks, you're not trying hard enough. That's what I've learned in California. If you don't fail, you're not trying hard enough. Now, I don't want you to fail. I don't want you to get a bad grade, but I mentioned to you that I flunked my first year in college specifically so you could realize that even in the depths of failure, it is in your power to decide not to stay there, but to succeed. You need to learn from it. What I learned is I can't go around depressed, brain dead, just going through the motions, not caring, and just not going to class and not caring about the grades and letting myself get a poor grade, getting myself get a D minus grade point average. I have to be alert. I have to care. At another point in my life, after I'd finished my dissertation and I changed careers, after I finished my PhD and I changed careers to go into Silicon Valley and do marketing and strategic planning, I was having a hard time getting a job for a while. People wouldn't hire me, not because I wasn't qualified. One guy actually told me why he was not going to hire me, a guy at IBM. He said, you can do this job. You could do this job really, really well, but I'm not going to hire you. Why? Why are you not going to hire me? I'm not going to hire you because in 6 months, you're going to have my job. And so I don't want to be threatened by you taking over my job. So I'm going to go with somebody else. Now, not only was that illegal for you to tell me, it was really, it demonstrated that he was not very, very confident in his own skills. Really wise people and strong leaders want people that are smarter than themselves, want people with specific skills, because they want to nurture those and develop them, and they're going to manage a lot of people like that, and the whole team is going to get the credit. So don't give up on yourself. Make the right decisions. Go forward. Okay, I want to move forward. I got a little bit distracted, but let me go back to the culture, and I want to give you one example. And that is, I want to tell this little story about people in a movie theater. And you're sitting there in the movie theater and you look around and you see that people are nervous and fidgety, and they're looking around, and they're seeing that something's happening. So you start looking around, what's happening, and you see some people starting to get nervous and starting to move and pack their things, and maybe you see somebody pointing or something, and all of a sudden you see a few people starting to move away, and you're looking around saying, okay, something's going on. I don't know what it is, but something's going on. I got to figure out what's going on. Something's happening. Come on, let's go. Talk to my girlfriend, my wife, whoever it might be. I think we better get ready to move. And then all of a sudden we're moving, we're leaving, and there was nothing going on. There was nothing going on. Just somebody started looking at somebody. Maybe they knew somebody and they pointed to them and like trying to get their attention. And other people started looking around. They're thinking something going on. They're thinking there's some danger. They're thinking that there's a reason why they need to leave. So what's happening? You want to be accepted. You want to feel that you feel that you don't know something, you're lacking in information. You want to join the rest of the people because they must know something that I don't know. So what you've done is you've suspended your own reality, and you've given the power to the others. You've given the power to all the others. What you need to remember from that story is whether it's in your neighborhood or whether it's from what you're looking at television, don't give away your power. You are the one that has the ability. You have what I call agency. You have the power to decide what your life is going to be about. If you don't know what agency is, look it up. You'll maybe hear me talk a little bit about it, but it might be more powerful if you look it up and you start to ask yourself, what did Dr. Nick mean when he said you have agency? And that is very important because I speak to a lot of Latinos and other groups, a lot of low-income groups throughout the country. And there's one thing that I see all the time. We learn to be subservient. And this happens with gringos too. Some of the best students in some of the best schools, they suffer from this. Those students that are the best at getting all A's, and I did all the extracurriculars. I did band, I did the sports, I did cleanup around my community. I did everything. I got straight A's and everything. What are they doing? They're trying to be a good boy or a good girl. They're trying to be a good student. They're trying to satisfy their teachers, and they're trying to satisfy their parents, and they're trying really, really hard. And yes, I congratulate them on their skill and their success. But oftentimes what happens when I ask them, so tell me about you. What do you care about? You've done all these things. What is really important to you? And they look at me with, what? Oh, I don't know. I did everything I'm supposed to do. You know, no one ever stopped to ask them, what do you care about? What's important to you? And that's where they falter, because the colleges and life and your jobs, they want to know who you are. They want to know what you value. They want to know what's important to you. They want to know that you are using your brain to make good decisions about what's real and what's not real. What is reality? You know, what is the truth? Don't go with the group. Don't go with the tailgate group that's all cheering, even if you don't know them, and you're saying, I'm going to follow them blindly. Oh, okay, we do it because it's fun. You know, it's one thing to follow your football team, whatever team is your favorite. That's okay, that's fine. But when you're making decisions about your life, your career, and the decisions about your community and what needs to be improved and what should change and who you're going to vote for, what you're going to believe, you have to follow your own heart. But you have to base it on reality. You have to question, be critical. You have to look at the sources of the information you're getting. You have to find out why they're saying that. What agenda do they have? And you have to then decide for yourself, okay, now I understand where they're coming from, and I don't agree with some of their assumptions. I don't agree with where they're coming from. You know, I think something different, and that's where you're strong. I think something different. That's where you're strong. And I want something. That's the person that I want to see in you. And I know you can do this. I know you can do this. And let me start to wind down there for a moment, because I want to tell you something that I learned about myself later on that's going to give you the motivation or the understanding that you have all it takes to be successful. I want to bring you back to that 7th grade teacher, Mrs. Russman, that embarrassed me. I mean, I was ready to cry. And sometimes when I tell the story, I almost do begin to cry because it hurt me so much. It really did. That she embarrassed me, called me stupid, called me dumb, said I should not be talking about going to college. I was embarrassed in front of the people that were my friends that were hearing them, my peer groups. I wanted to be accepted like you want to be accepted. And here she is putting me down, basically characterizing me to the rest of my friends as this guy, Dr. Nick, this guy, Nick, is less than all the rest of you. He should not be talking about going to college. Let me tell you the other part of that story. I went to, after Texas, the mentor that I had, who challenged me about what are you going to do next? And, you know, what do you need to do next and how long is that going to take you? And then made me the project leader and taught me, or rather I taught myself by his challenges about how to apply for and win grants and then go on and manage people. I had 75 people working for me. The research I did spanned 3 states, Southern California, Southern Arizona, and the area around San Antonio and Austin. And so it was a huge study, got a lot of fame out of it, did a lot of publishing. And after that, went to Stanford, got my second master's. First one was from Austin. Along the way, as I said earlier, I was always trying to help other people. So I taught classes to Latinos at the Centro Chicano y Latino. Now, Chicano is kind of a touchy term, might be for some of you as well, because in Texas, I remember, man, those Chicanos, those are the people from California. They're radicals. They're going to be throwing bricks and aggravating people and insulting and beating in your face stuff. And that's not what I grew up knowing in Texas. I wanted to be a good boy. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to get an education because that was going to open the opportunities. I didn't want to be out there arguing and throwing bricks and marching and insulting people or being in their face, demanding things. Anyway, I went to California and I started to change, and I was giving classes at the Stanford's Community Support Center for Latinos, which was called the Centro Chicano at that time. Now it's called the Centro Chicano y Latino. And the classes that I gave, among many of them, was on winning scholarships because I knew how to write scholarships, apply for scholarships and win them, and also grants and get them. So I taught people, okay, here's what you do. Let's go to the library. Let's look them up. Okay, what are the questions? Let's start to answer them together. Look, I'll demonstrate one for you. I'm going to pick one out. Okay, here's one called Fulbright. I'll fill it out. I'll mail it. I'll put it in the mail. And 6 months later, I got awarded a Fulbright fellowship, became a Fulbright fellow. And this is very prestigious. And basically, they give you money to live and do research in another country for a year, and they don't ask anything in return. I was shocked. I said, okay, what report do you want? Nothing. Do you want me to come in and report to you once a quarter? No. Once a month? No. Well, what do you want me to do at the end? Nothing. Just go do what you said you were going to do. No one's looking over your shoulder. You go do what you're going to do. And that's when I lived in Mexico City and went to Televisa and did all that work. Right? Okay. After my PhD, I decided to change careers. And this is important. I'm still getting back to Mrs. Russman and what she did to me and what I learned later in my life. So I decided to change careers. I didn't understand why you get a PhD. And by the time I got it, I realized that the reasons for getting a PhD is not the most important thing to me in my life, in my career. Only 2 reasons you get a PhD. And that is because you want to teach at a university. And I did. Actually, I did want to do that. But by the time I finished, I was disillusioned. I'll tell you about that in a minute. The second reason is because you're going to do research. So you can work at a university or a think tank. To get a master's is different. If you aspire to get a master's degree, it's going to give you an edge. If you decide to go into business, an MBA is going to be really, really good for you to get, because that's going to give you an advantage in how far you go in working for big companies. Or what's really, really popular these days, for you to start your own company, and you'll have some of the tools for how to manage and how to run the company, how to create business plans, how to create spreadsheets that are going to forecast what you're going to do, all sorts of stuff. MBA is good, but those aren't the only places the only valuable education. But you should aspire to get at least a bachelor's degree. But if you can go for a master's degree, that's even better. Anyway, I got my PhD, and I had such a hard time with some of the faculty at Stanford. One professor wrote me a letter about 4 months before I finished saying, you're being kicked out. You're being kicked out because all you've done is use our resources, because they paid the first 2 years for me to attend. But after that, I won scholarships, so I paid my own way. But you've done nothing but use our school's resources and have taken Mickey Mouse classes like tennis. I took a tennis class one time because I was together with my girlfriend. We were going to do something to relax. It was an extracurricular. It was allowed. But, this guy was trying to make everything a case against me. He made the case against me. The simplest reason is because he was racist. Later, I talked to one of my mentors, a guy that had gone to Stanford before I went there, and Felix Gutierrez. He's a very famous guy. He taught at University of Southern California for many years. He's been on Nightline, on TV networks and everything, talking about promoting Latinos in the media. And so if you want to look him up, he's another good guy to learn from, Dr. Felix Gutierrez. Anyway, Felix and I met about 10 years ago, this is way after Stanford. And I told him, he said, why did you leave academia? And I said, I got so burned out. And also this professor, and I named him, I won't name him for you. I named him. And I said, he wrote me this letter. He really made my life hell. And Felix said, well, I can understand, because we made his life hell when we were trying to get more Latinos to get accepted into Stanford. So, I pushed on him, he said, we made his life hell. Now you come along, a generation or two later, or a few years later, actually, and he's then giving you hell. So that's what happened. But my decision was based partly on that. I got burned out on academia. But the other reason was I realized what was really important to me now at that stage in my life. I look back and I realized, what is it that's important to me? What can I do for a living, and what is important? And you need to ask yourself this when you're ready to go to work. And you need to ask yourself this often, every 3, 4, or 5 years, every time you get to a different stage, when you get your bachelor's degree, when you get your AA, when you get your bachelor's degree, when you get your master's degree, when you get your job and you've been there 2, 3, 4 years, ask yourself, what skills do I have for getting a job? In my case, I said, well, I know a lot about computers. self-taught mostly. I know a lot about doing research because Fred taught me, and I continue to learn in the PhD program. And I know a lot about doing presentations because that's what I did, is I presented a lot of the research that I had. And so I want to go out and get a job doing those three things. I looked around, Silicon Valley was right next door to Stanford. It was growing. A lot of the people that started many of the Silicon Valley companies came from Stanford. So I figured that's where I'm going. But I also realized what really makes me happy. And there was one of two things that I knew then, and the other one I'll tell you at the very end. The one thing I knew is that I am very, very affected by my geography. If it's a depressed area, my feelings go down, and I'm not as productive as I am. And so I made a decision at that point that I wanted to stay in the area, the San Francisco Bay Area. You know, now that didn't mean that I was rejecting my friends and my community, my mother, my cousins. Oh, by the way, I've got dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of cousins. When I was first in college, my brother and I counted up, we had at least 400 relatives in San Antonio, related only to my mother's side, not my father's side, because I never knew my father. But these days, I venture to say, got several, maybe at least a couple of thousand relatives that are not more than, you know, one or two, maybe three generations away. And if I go talk to my cousins, they'll probably introduce me to some of their kids and their kids. So, in any case, I haven't given up on them. I still relate to them. I still talk to them. I still love them. They're still my people, like you are my people. But I knew the geography made a big difference to me. So I wanted to stay in California. I figured, okay, there's Silicon Valley. I'm going to go work for Silicon Valley doing market research and strategic planning. I had a great deal of success. The work that I did, I was the in-house think tank. And the work that I did went to the top level executives. So I was in the room with people like Bill Gates, who in the 1980s was the richest man in the world. Some of the research that I did went to him for him to make a decision, and others as well. The other companies, Intel and others, Hewlett Packard, that I also did advising and coaching for. The work that I did went to them, and they made decisions. I didn't get to make decisions because I wasn't a vice president. If I'd had a mentor when I went to these big companies, I might have been a vice president. I might have even started my own company, but I was still feeling my own way, and I had changed careers. Now, at my last company, Sun Microsystems, one day I got sick, went to the doctor. Doctor said, you know, I think you need to go see a psychiatrist. This is getting back to Mrs. Russman, what she saw and why she insulted me in front of all my friends. So the doctor said, you need to go see a psychiatrist. I went to see a psychiatrist, and he gave me a bunch of tests, and he came back and he asked, how in the world did you achieve what you've achieved? Still hurts. How did you achieve what you achieved? Got all these degrees, got a PhD, worked for all these people at big companies. Because do you realize you have a severe learning disability? He was pointing out to me what Mrs. Russman had noticed but couldn't give a label to, that I have a severe learning disability. I'm dyslexic, means I transfer numbers and words, letters. I can write with either hand. I'm ambidextrous. I have time management problems, a lot of other things like that. Oh, excuse me. Still hurts. How did you achieve this? I want to tell you, because I know that you can do it if I did it. What did I do? I didn't give up. I was not going to let somebody put me down. I was not going to let Mrs. Russman or that counselor at San Antonio College, SAC, tell me that I was dumb, that I was being expelled, that I was not college material, that I could not learn. I knew I could learn. I knew I was smart. I was just different. I just learned in a different way. I didn't give up. I found ways of getting the grades. of doing what I needed to do. I was determined. Sometimes it was, okay, I need to give myself more time. Why didn't I get the grade that I wanted? Okay, I'd go talk to the teachers. I'd figure out ways of being able to improve myself. I began to understand how I work because I was unique and I was going to succeed. So I was going to come up with my own tools. So I learned to be really good at math. I learned to be really good at English. My transformation started when I wrote my master's degree at UT Austin, and I turned it in, and it was a report for the research I was doing that I told you, the Fred Williams at this research center at University of Texas at Austin hired me. It was the Center for Communication Research. We had maybe about 150 people working there at a certain time. There were about 5 of us that were the leaders. I was one of the leaders, and I had up to 75 people working for me at the time. I was only 21, 22 maybe by the time I left. And I finished doing the report for this research study about, the media that's consumed by Latinos. It was a 20 or 30 page report, and it was published, and we had like maybe 500 copies of it in the hallway because we were going to send it out to libraries and different places, and people wanted it. They were asking for it. And my colleagues, these other people that I respected, these other people that are highly educated, picked it up and looked through it. And they said, wow, you're really a good writer. You're really great. It's really, really good. That was the complete opposite of what Mrs. Restland had told me, the English teacher. She was failing me because she said I could not write. She was failing me because she said I was stupid. She was failing me because she said I could not spell and I didn't know punctuation, etc. Well, part of it might have been because I learned Spanish before I learned English, but part of it was that I had a learning disability that had all these different factors. As I said, dyslexia and being ambidextrous and having time management and who knows, a bunch of others as well. And so the doctor asked me, how did you achieve this? I never gave up. I was persistent. I never gave up on I was going to be success, which is not just about I'm going to get my A degree. I never gave up on my life. I am going to be successful beyond my A, beyond my bachelor's, beyond my master's, beyond my PhD, beyond then working in Silicon Valley. I am going to be successful as a person. And that's why I'm talking to you today. Because my greatest success will be to influence you that you can do it too. If I did it, and if you do what I say, which is have a goal, even if it changes half a dozen times in your life or more, be persistent, never give up on yourself. Don't let anybody put you down. Believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. And the last one is have agency. That's something that I teach today. At one point in my coaching for people to get into top universities, and I do this all over the country, been doing it formally for the last 20-something years, but I've actually been doing it all my life, as I explained earlier, helping others. I ask people about, I teach people, I used to teach people, here's what you need to do in high school and to apply for the top colleges. And then I elevated it to, okay, let's look at your essays. If you're going to go into a top competitive school, you got to write some essays. And you got to be really good at telling a good story and revealing who you are. So I'd ask them, who are you? What do you care about? You're a straight A student. You've done good, Latino or not Latino. They're really good students, many of them. Some of them were not, that's fine. But they got through school and they aspired to go on to a top university. So why did you do this? Well, because I was trying to please my teachers and my mother and my father, because they said this is the right thing to do. Yeah, but what do you care about? And they were to blank. So I started then teaching at that level. It's not just how do you apply, what do you need to do and what courses and what extracurriculars. Now it's who are you? That's going to be important. And then I elevated it to the next level. It is, I want you to talk about having agency. I want you to talk about you are in control. If you don't care about yourself, you don't care about your life, if you don't decide what's important, nobody else is going to be on your side. They're going to tell you what to do. They're going to tell you what to think, and you're going to be following, not a leader. And you have the capability, and I want you to be a leader, because I talk to people all over the country. What it takes is a mindset, a determination that you're going to succeed, and goal, and never giving up. If you follow those things, you're going to achieve your dreams. Don't worry that they're going to change. You're going to achieve them. Let me leave you with that for right now, and I'll take any questions you have. Dari, are you there? Okay. Well, if any of you have any questions,
Yes,
oh, there you are,
I'm here.
Dari.
Yeah, I was gonna ask the students if they had any more questions.
I really would like you guys to come up with some questions. There's lots of stuff for you to question. My own background, how I did it, what you want to do in life, tools to use.
Well, I have a question. Like, would you say Latinos are being well represented now?
Can you speak a little louder? I can't hear you.
Yes. Would you say that Latinos are being well represented now than they used to be?
Well, we're better represented, but we're not there yet. You know, we're not well represented. And within that, I would remind you, we're not homogeneous. Even in South Texas, I'm sure you have some Latinos that are, you know, conservative and more liberal, that are more, you know, take whatever spectrum you want. And there are people across the board. But are we better off in terms of, are we better represented than we were like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 50 years ago? Yes. But, you know, are we the people that are running the big companies right now? No, very few Latinos are running the big companies. And oftentimes, many of those were people that already started off with advantages. Not always, but sometimes they are. Are we, you know, running the politics? Well, yes, there's a lot of politicians in Texas that are politicians, but, you know, are we the governors? Well, a few, but not very many. Are we have we gotten a Latino president? No, not yet. But, you know, we have had a lot of Latinos that have been ambassadors and other people like that. So, and they don't all come from the wealthy. The people that I admire the most, and the people that I work with the most, and the people that I have that I think have the best attitude are the people that are immigrants, the people that come here from another country. Because when I talk to people all over the United States, not just on the border, but all over the United States, those that grew up in the United States, Latinos, I'm thinking about, they look around and they say, man, everything is biased against us. Man, there's prejudice. We don't get the advantages. The schools are no good where I went to. My parents are not rich, man. You know, it's just, man, how am I ever going to make it? It's not going to make it. I look at some of the people that come over from another country, and those that are ambitious, those that are determined to succeed, they look around, they say, man, I finally made it here. There's opportunities. And yeah, they might get blocked. They might feel the sting of racism or being prejudiced against, or not given the advantage, or, you know, the doors are closed on, but they keep trying. They're going to make it. And oftentimes they go into business on their own. They become entrepreneurs, and they're going to succeed. They're going to do something. They're going to do everything they can, because they realize that this is something I didn't have in the country I came from. I'm not thinking just Mexico. I'm thinking about Latin America, Central America, Latin America. There are opportunities here. And so I don't see the barriers, I see the opportunities. And so I applaud them. And that's what I think that I would like all of you to also realize. Yes, I know that life is a certain way in South Texas, in Laredo. You got 250,000 people, and then a lot of ranchos all around, and other communities, McAllen, Brownsville, and, you know, Del Rio and other places like that. Maybe San Antonio, when you think of that, if you're going to the big town, you know, the big city, going to go up there and everything. But that's not the whole world. There's a whole world out there, and you have just as much right to go out there and make a difference and be respected and respect yourself and have success as anybody else does. Mm-hmm. But don't forget where you came from. Don't forget to help the people that are going to be coming behind you the way you are. Did I answer your question, Karen?
Yes, we have two more questions here in the chat box. One says, did you enjoy working more in the academia than private industry?
Good question. The short answer is yes, definitely. And let me tell you why. And I'd like this to be something that you can take with you to make your decisions about where you're going to go and what you're going to do. When I was in high school, they gave these aptitude tests. They might still be giving them, maybe you got them. And it always came back that I should be a college professor, a journalist, or a priest. And I don't know what they were tapping into, but I rejected that. No, that was not what was sexy and fun. That was not what everybody wanted to do. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to do what everybody else wanted to do. I wanted, at that time, NASA was getting big. This was the 60s and stuff. And, NASA was where the smart people went to. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to go work for NASA. So my first year in school, maybe it was the second year, I forget when it was. Anyway, I decided, okay, I'm going to major in engineering. And after taking one engineering class, I decided this is not for me, because I thought they're going to put me in a little room. They're going to lock the door. They're going to feed me a food tray underneath the door, and I'm not going to get to go out and talk to people. And I love to talk to people. I'm a social person. And it was for that dumb reason that I rejected going into engineering. I went on, got my degrees in communication, journalism, advertising, and then all the rest that already, the research I did. So it was in the social sciences. And then I ended up, because I did have a propensity for learning about computers, and I was really pretty good, not the best, but pretty good at math. So I did end up being attracted to go working for Silicon Valley. And the culture that I saw there was what really turned me off. That leads me to say, Dari, that no, once I got to learn the culture, that people were backstabbing each other. They were out for themselves. Every individual was out for themselves. They weren't trying to be cooperative, as I had seen in the academic world. They weren't trying to help other people. Even had one woman that came and kind of befriended me and pumped me for information. I thought she was just trying to be a friend. I was trying to be helpful. So from my own good nature, saying, yeah, let me tell you the way it is. Let me tell you what can be helpful. It was not until a year or two later that I realized she had done that to everybody in the department. And so she was using her cuteness, attractiveness to go to all the guys and everybody and ask for, oh, can you give me help? Can you show me how things are? She took all that information and then she used it to jump over them. Had another guy who was always coming into my office and say, drop everything. We got a fire drill. Got to drop whatever you're doing. You got to do this for me. You got to do this. That would happen all the time. That happened at Sun Microsystems until one of my neighbors across the hall complained to my boss and complained to HR and said, this guy is coming in and abusing this other worker. He's talking to him without respect. He's telling him to stop what he's doing. Now, I thought I was being helpful. I thought that's the way it worked. That's what I used to do in academia. You would help other people. My boss called me in and said, what's going on? Why are you complaining? I said, I'm not complaining. My neighbor complained. I didn't. And said, okay, we talked a little bit more. And basically, they put that other guy in his place. And the guy came and apologized. Saying, oh, sorry, but my style of working in the company is I'm always throwing bricks over the wall, and trying to get people to do things. And I don't stop till the brick comes back. Well, a brick came back. So, okay, I apologize. I won't do that to you anymore. So that was the nature of things. I saw the same thing at Microsoft. That company, I really detested. I left it after a year. I left it because when I interviewed, they had these big buildings that were like 7, 8 stories tall, and they had an atrium in the center where you could look over the balcony and look down the center, and the cafeterias were down at the bottom. And I looked down when they took me to lunch when I was interviewing, and I saw all these families, men and women, husbands and wives, kids, strollers, other toddlers or young kids running around and say, wow, this is a good place. They value family. That's great. Okay. Then I started to work there. And every day they would come in and say, okay, we're working late again. What do you want for dinner? Pizza, Chinese, Mexican, what do you want? And so every day was a fire drill. Every day we ended up having to stay at the office till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night, and then show up the next morning. They didn't necessarily care to show up at 8 in the morning, but you had to be there by at least 9 or so. But every day, you were going to be staying late because that's the culture they had there. That's the way things functioned there. And so the reason that those families were eating together downstairs is because that was the only time during the day that they got to see each other. Other than that, when they got home, the kids were already asleep, and the guy was tired or the woman was tired, whichever it was, and they didn't get to see each other. So my answer to you with all that detail is I did not like Silicon Valley. And I realized at that moment that the things that had driven me away from academia, which was politics, also were driving me away from the private industry, because it was ruthless, it was backstabbing, and that wasn't my nature.
Mhm.
You said you
So
had
we
another
have
question, or
one
somebody did.
Yeah, we have one last question, and that would be, what motivates you to do what you do?
Wonderful, great. I hope that you have been able to see some of my passion.
Mhm.
I am trying to help those young men and women like yourself. Doesn't matter if you're Latino, Black, Puerto Rican, Asian, all the varieties of Asian, whether it's Chinese, Japanese, Cambodian, or whatever, Lao, whatever it might be. There are many of those groups here in California. I'm trying to help the people that are at the lower end of the economic rungs to have somebody available to them to say, I will tell you what you need to know to succeed in life. I will try my best to give you the best advice I can, to give you a helping hand, to coach you, to mentor you, to have you be a success. Because essentially, I see myself in you. I was where you are. I wish somebody would have talked to me when I was in high school and told me, this is what you need to do. This is the courses you should take. This is when you're supposed to apply to colleges. I wish that I would have had somebody when I was in my first year in college to talk to me and say, why are you not going to class? What's going on? Here's what you need to do. Instead of getting a low grade point average and having to make it up later, assess that you're not feeling well, that your heart's not in it, and take a leave of absence before you get all these low grades. You can do that. And I would have saved myself a lot of headache and probably gotten the attention I needed. I wish that I would have had somebody there when I went on through all the different stages. Now, I did have Fred Williams who hired me the very first month or two that I was in Austin, at UT Austin, and hired me, and then had somebody else kind of work with me for the first 2 years. The second 2 years, he was the one directly giving me challenges as to what to do. What are you going to do, and how long is it going to take you? So he was my mentor, and he changed the whole trajectory of my life. That's why I know it's important. I didn't know that he was mentoring me. I just thought that it's my job, so I'm supposed to do what my boss wants. So he asked me a question, what are you going to do next? And I would answer it. And how long is that going to take you? And I would answer it. And I didn't always meet my time deadlines, but I tried my best. And he kept on helping me. So why do I do what I do? Because I see myself in you. I want you to have greater success than I had. And I know you can do it for the stories that I told you. Let me tell you one other reason to answer that question. I forget what school I was at, but I think I was already in California. Maybe I was going to California. I worked in Washington, D.C. for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, helping TV and radio stations all over the country to do audience analysis, audience research. And I worked for them for a year because I was young and arrogant at the time. And I told my boss, I'm only going to work for a year because I'm going to go get my PhD. And so I left after a year and on my way to California to go to school. But I stopped by in Texas and I saw my nieces. I have an older brother, 10 years older than me. And my brother is one of the smartest guys that I've ever known. Well, I shouldn't say smart. He was one of the guys that reads a lot. And he is smart. He is very smart. I learned a lot from him. But he stopped going to high school before he graduated. Didn't get a college degree. And he would always berate me about, why are you going to college, man? Just get a degree in anything, just go to any school. It's just as good as any other. Well, no, you do learn something in college. You do learn things. And what I learned was that I learned how to be critical of what I was learning. I learned how to ask questions. I learned how to question who was the author or who was the broadcaster or who was the one promoting something and why, where did they come from, in order to give me a better idea of how to evaluate the messages that I was getting or the things they were pushing me to try and do. And that's one thing that my brother never learned. He would read stuff and come back and all excited, tell me, hey, there's all this stuff about UFOs. Let me tell you, they're real. There's this, there's all this stuff about, he would name all sorts of things that he would read about, and he would believe them. He would say, this is true. I heard it on the radio. I read a bit about it, stuff like that. And what I finally told him at one point, I said, you need to have some judgment. You need to be critical of who it is that who it is that's writing this stuff, who it is that's saying this stuff, where they're coming from, so you can make a better decision about whether this is true or not. So I think I forgot your question, but I think that was part of the answer. So,
the question was, what motivates you to do what you do?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I think.
Okay. Let me finish it off. So I tried to help my brother, but he didn't listen. I'm trying to help you because I wanted somebody to give me more guidance. If I had somebody helping me when I went to the Silicon Valley companies, I probably could have been a vice president or maybe even a CEO or founded my own company. Certainly had enough ideas. One of the other things that I do today is I do business coaching, entrepreneurial coaching. I give classes in that to help young people, particularly Latinos, to be able to figure out how to do business plans, how to increase their marketing, how to do online marketing, how to understand their customer, how to satisfy their customers' needs. So yeah, I could have been a CEO. And the reason I do this is because it goes back to that aptitude test that I took in high school that I didn't believe that I should have been a college professor, a journalist, or a priest. I'm still trying. I finally accepted what those things were telling me. They were telling me that what I am all about, the person I am, what makes me unique, what I have to give to the world is my passion for coaching and mentoring other people. I rejected that for many, many years until I looked back at my life and realized that's what I've been doing all my life. When I left Silicon Valley in the early 2000s, I asked myself once more, like I did earlier that I told you, what can I do for a living? And this is to answer your question. I know a lot about computers. I know a lot about research. This time I said, I know a lot about research, not only in academia, which is a lot slower than in the real world where it's fast. I mean, you gotta fast and you gotta make decisions and people argue with you and sometimes they're very rude because they want to promote what they think is going on. So you have to be really, really strong about defending what it is that you think is the truth about the decisions we need to make. So I know a lot about research and I know a lot about doing presentations, but I asked myself one other question. So now I was much more mature, I was middle-aged. I asked myself, what do I love doing? And I look back and I realized coaching and mentoring people, helping other people to succeed. I went back to being a priest, being a college professor. I want to see you succeed because that makes my life worthwhile. Now, I also want to succeed. So I'm still working, helping other people. And I get paid by large corporations to be an advisor or coach. I give classes and they're not free, they're for pay. But the reason I give these talks is because I'm hoping that all of you, with names like Ramirez, Perez, Guerra, Merida, Carvalho, Orozco, Castillo, Zarate, Hernandez, all of you, Dominguez. I want Romero, Benavides. I want all you guys to get something that's going to inspire you to say, I'm not going to put up for the mediocre. I'm not going to put up with simply following. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to base my life on reality because if I don't care about myself, nobody else is going to care. I want you to know that and believe it and act on it, because that's going to make you more successful than anything else. That's my answer to you. More questions, please. I'm here as long as you need me.
We have, sorry?
I'm here as long as you need me.
Okay, well, like time has already, like, we already ran out of time, but I can give you the last question if you want.
Sure.
Well, the last two questions. One is, what gave you the strength that pushed you to not listen to those words that wanted to lower you?
Say that again. What gave me the strength to do what? That wanted to lower me?
Yeah, what gave you the strength that pushed you to not listen to those words that wanted to lower you? And
Okay.
the last question would be, where can, like, we reach you if we have any questions?
Very good. Yes. Okay. Okay. What gave me the strength to fight back? Anger.
Mhm.
I was angry. I was insulted. I was embarrassed. But more than anything else, I was angry. I was so angry at Mrs. Russman. I can't say that I've forgiven her, but I know now that if it hadn't been for that, I would not have had that fire in my belly to push forward. You need to find the fire in your belly, whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be from a negative thing like this, but you have to ask yourself and try to understand yourself as best as possible. What is it that you care about? When Mrs. Russman said those words, I mean, what I was hearing was dumb, stupid, can't learn, shouldn't go to college. I was angry, and I was going to prove her wrong. I was going to do whatever it takes to prove her wrong. I knew that that was not me. And even if there was a kernel of truth, I was going to do everything I could to not be that. I was going to perform. I was going to show her and the world, show everybody I was smart. So it was that fire in my belly. Here in Stockton, there's another person that I admire for his strength of determination. He is one of the few Latino astronauts. His name is Jose Hernandez. And his story is when he was 11 years old, he was in 5th grade, he saw a NASA rocket taking off with astronauts in it. And he went to his dad and said, Papi, yo quiero ser uno de ellos. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an astronaut. Father was a farm worker, poor household, not a lot of money. And the father took him off to the side to the kitchen and said, mira, mijo, yo no tengo dinero, yo no soy educado, te apoyo en lo que quieres hacer, pero es todo lo que puedo hacer. Tú tienes que hacer dos cosas. You have to have a goal, and you have a goal, never let go of it, and you have to have a plan. Start making a plan for what you're going to do. And so he did that. He made a plan. So, okay, I got to go to college. What does that mean? It means I got to do certain things right now. And he was in the 5th grade. He was 11 years old. So I got to do, what do I need to do for the 6th grade all the way to high school? He, followed those things. He was driven. He found his fire in his belly. Majored in engineering, got the degree, applied to NASA, didn't get accepted. Had to get a job, went to work for Lawrence Livermore Labs and part of the Jet Propulsion Laboratories stuff, part of NASA. Worked for them, did research, and learned that his chances of becoming an astronaut become better if he got a master's degree. He went to another school, to UC Santa Barbara, University of California, Santa Barbara, got a master's degree, and came back, kept on working at labs, Lawrence Livermore Labs, and kept applying. He applied 12 times until he finally got accepted and achieved his dream of becoming an astronaut. So why did he do that? And what can you learn from this? And what did I do? Find the fire in your belly. Find something that you really, really want to do. Sometimes it comes from a negative. I have a person that I'm coaching right now that I'm helping. I consider him the person that I mentor. Came from another country, and was very poor, was disrespected by his mother because, the mother the mother didn't like the father that boy came from, so she took it out on the boy. So he was really raised by his grandmother, and so they were poor, and schools in the farm fields where he grew up in a little village in Guatemala, they didn't have good schools. And so when as a teenager, his mom was in California, she sent for him, said, hey, I want you to come to the United States. He paid for a coyote to bring him across. He came to the United States, and she said, okay, I want you to get to work because I need you here to help me pay the rent. He said, no, I'm going to go to school. And she said, no, you need to help me pay the rent. Go to work, get a job. So he said, no, I'm going to go to school. There's opportunity here. So he went to school during the day and he got a job in the evening. And he worked, he did that for several years, finished his high school in 3 years. And the teachers, he was always asking for taking the harder classes, the better classes, the college preparatory classes. The teachers wouldn't would not let him move on. And he asked, why? Why not me? He basically said, I'm smart. I know I'm smart, and I want to make it. I see an opportunity. I see an opportunity. Why are you letting them through and not me? That guy's stupid. I know I'm smarter than he is. Why not me? Well, you're an English language learner. You're still learning English, so you can't go into those college prep classes. He was determined, and he went on. And I won't tell you the rest of the story, but he's currently finishing his bachelor's degree. He's an entrepreneur. He's very successful. He's worked for a lot of Silicon Valley companies now. He's in his 30s now. And so he was determined. He found the fire in his belly. That fire was twofold. One, in Guatemala, there were no opportunities. I'm in Northern California. There are many opportunities out here. And two, I know I'm smart. I know I can learn. So he taught himself English. He taught himself skills. He uses the internet to investigate anything he wants. I can have conversations with him that I can only have with other college educated people, and only a few of them, because many of them are not as driven and as oriented as he is to being successful. So I can talk to him about philosophy. I can talk to him about business. I can talk to him about a lot of different things about how to be successful. And we communicate, we resonate, because he was determined. He is determined to be successful. So find the fire in your belly. It doesn't have to come from being insulted. It can come from just, you see a dream and you want to be there. It can be that you want to be a millionaire. It can mean that you want to have your own company. It can mean that you want to be in medicine because your mother or your aunt or your little brother got sick and it hurt you so much that you want to be in medicine so you can help others when they're sick like that. You have to find your own passion. Now, let me end this part of it with something that I learned a long time ago. When I couldn't get those jobs, when I left Stanford, and I tried to change careers to work in Silicon Valley, and all these companies would not give me the jobs because they were threatened by me, or they would say that I didn't have enough experience in their field, etc. Let's see, I lost my train of thought, excuse me. Well, let me let it go because I'm going off too long anyway. I think you got my point. Find the fire in your belly. Find what motivates you. Find what's going to drive you to be successful. And how can you reach me? That was the last question. You can reach me at...
Where can I reach you?
Okay. You can send me an email to the email that I use for coaching people. It's collegeadmit, all one word, @gmail.com. COLLEGEADMIT. I wanted to use college advisor or college admissions, but they were taken. So for right now, I use collegeadmit @gmail.com. If you can't find me any other way, go to the student life department, email the admin, Elva, and she will have my email address. So contact somebody there in Student Life, and they'll know how to contact me. And so,
Okay.
okay, any other questions? Anything else? I'll try to make it shorter or we're done, one or the other.
I think we don't have any more questions, but honestly, that was a very good presentation. Thank you for being here with us today. And I hope like all the students have, find something to take home with them. I did, I know I did. And I really appreciate your presentation for today. It was very good. And thank you so much for it.
Thank you, and I wanted to leave this for everybody, for you and all the students. I really want to hear from you. I gave you my email address. You can look me up on LinkedIn. You'll see all my background as well.
Okay.
I'm just starting to get more and more of a presence on social media. I haven't had to do that in the past. So many people have known me that I've gotten many, many clients through word of mouth for the last 20 years. But now you'll start seeing me more and more on Facebook, on Instagram, others as well, TikTok. I've got a few 1-minute videos on TikTok, but the best place would be either my email address or on LinkedIn. So please, I want to hear from you because I care about you for the reasons I said, and I'll give you the time. I'll help you, but you've got to do your part.
Okay.
You got to reach out to me. And with that,
Yeah.
good luck. I love you all. I care about you. I want nothing but your success. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one last thing. I'm gonna launch a poll so you can fill it out. Whoever is, all the students here and you, of course, just to fill out the poll that I'm about to launch. Okay.
Thank you.
And yeah, so your email is collegeadmit@gmail.com, right?
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna put it here in the chat. So
Very
just
good.
let me know if it's correct. Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it?
Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
collegeadmin@gmail. Okay.
Mhm.
So if anyone is interested in contact Dr. Nick Valenzuela, that's the email you are looking.
Please do not be shy. I'm friendly. I'll give you a virtual hug. I'll give you the best advice I can. I'm not going to reject your call. I want to hear from you, but you got to do your part. If you don't ask for help, you don't get it. So you got to ask.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much for everything, and we appreciate you for having you here today.
Thank you, Angie. I appreciate you saying that. I look forward to hearing from you, Angie. Benavides. Fernando, gracias. I'm glad you got something out of it. When you write to me, when you call me, tell me what moved you the most. That's important to me for when I go to the next class, because I want to make sure that I'm really motivating people. Juan, Graciela, gracias, Ashley. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Victoria, yes. Gabriela, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, doctor. Have a good day.
Derry. Darinka, Derry, can you be
Yes.
sure to send me a copy of the recording, please?
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, everybody.